everyone, and welcome back to the channel. This is StyleWithChika. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you something very important that I wish someone had told me earlier when I started sewing, and that's basic sewing formulas. So sometimes when you don't have all the measurements and you're trying to draft a pattern from scratch, most times you might have forgotten to take the crotch depth or the armhole measurements. Don't worry, I've got you, because in this video I'm going to be showing you simple formulas you can use to estimate things like this. So if this is something that you're interested in, please keep on watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please hit on that subscribe button so you do not miss any of my amazing tutorials, and let's get started. So now I need you to understand that these formulas are estimations. So it may not be exactly your measurement, but it would either be close to, maybe a little bit more than, or a little bit less than. But it is a very good head start when you have forgotten to take some measurements, so you are not totally lost. Okay, so measurements like your hip, your round hip measurement, your round waist measurement, your round bust measurement, round other bust measurements, shoulder measurements are things that you should not forget to take on your clients. Okay, but then a little measure, other measurements such as your armhole line, your bust span, your crotch depth, you could easily forget that. So now I'm going to be sharing with you these few ones. So first of all, now on this straight line, this is my shoulder line. So next you want to get your armhole line. Okay, so to get your armhole line, the formula for getting your armhole line or armhole depth is your bust measurement. Your bust measurement divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. All right, so guys, my bust measurement is 37. Sometimes I like to use 36, sometimes I like to use 37, but 37 gives me better ease. So now I'm going to divide 37 by 6. So I'm going to be dividing 37 by 6. 37 divided by 6. Then I'm going to add 1.5 inches to it. And what I have here is 7.6 inches. So this is equals to 7.6 inches. Okay, so now first thing I want to do now is to take my shoulder measurement, and I'll divide my shoulder measurement by 2, and I'll mark it out on this line. So my shoulder measurement divided by 2, and from this line, to create your shoulder slope, you usually come down by about 1 inch from this point, and then to connect it upward here, you have to connect it to your neck width. So for a slimmer person, your neck width usually be 3 inches, and for somebody on the bigger side, you can use as much as 3.5 inches. Okay, for a baby, you can use 2.5 inches. So for me, as an average woman, I'm going to be using 3 inches. So when I mark out 3 inches here, I'm going to connect upward to get my shoulder slope. So now at this line, this is where I'm going to mark out my armhole depth as 7.6. Okay, so 7.6 on my tape is somewhere around here. Okay, somewhere around here. So now I'm going to take these measurements now, and I am going to mark it out right here like this. All right, so from this point now, I'm going to connect upward just like this, and I'll connect outward like this. So this becomes my armhole line, and this is my armhole depth also. So next now, I'm going to get my bust line. So for your bust line, it is your bust measurement divided by 4 plus 1 inch to 2 inches. So you can either add 1 inch or 2 inch. So let me explain. So my bust measurement is 37, and I'm going to divide 37 by 4. So 37 divided by 4 gives me 9.25. So I'm going to add 1 to 2 inches to it. So I'm going to pick 1.5. So you can add as much as 1 inch, you can add as much as 1.5, you can add as much as 2 inches. Like I said earlier, this is an approximation. So most times this is also dependent on height. Okay, for a taller person, you can use as much as 2 inches. For somebody on the shorter side, you can use just 1 inch, or you can even leave it that way without adding anything. That is why I said this is an approximation, and it's based off of body types. So because of my body type and my height, I'm going to be adding an extra allowance of 1.5 inches. So now I'm going to add 9.25 inches. Okay, so now I'm going to add 9.25 inches plus 1.5, and what I have is about 10.75. this 10.75, which is just about 10.5 1/4. So this is 10.5 1/4. So if you see something like 10.5, it's usually here. You see something like 10.25, it's here. You see something like 10.75, it's here. So this is where I have my bust line. So normally when I take my bust line measurement on my body, I have it as 11 inches. But like I said, also it's an approximation, so you can see that it is very close to it. So if I use this measurement to sew for myself, it would also turn out perfect. So now I'm going to mark out my bust line. To mark my bust line, I place my tape here and I'll mark that out at 10.75. And I'll go ahead and extend this line this way. So next, now I'm just going to mark out my under bust line. I'm going to mark out my waistline, and then I'll just mark out about 22 inches for the length of this, because this is just for an illustration. So normally you should take these measurements on your clients. Okay, so for this measurement here, I'm not going to give you a specific formula for it because it may not work for you. All right, but then I hear people say that for your under bust line, it should be usually 3 to 4 inches below your bust line, which I'm going to test out now. So they say 3 to 4 inches. And what I have here is 3 inches. So this is my bust line, this is my under bust line. So I guess it works. So for your waistline also, for a taller person, you can consider using 17 or 18. And then for a shorter person, it goes lesser. Okay, this is why I said that it varies. So I'm just going to continue drafting now. So next measurement I'm going to take is my bust span. Okay, so your bust span is also known as your nipple to nipple measurement. So the formula for bust span that I use is round bust measurement divided by 10. So my bust measurement is 37, and 37 divided by 10 gives me 3.7. Now usually I would make use of 4 inches because I like to have enough space between my nipple to nipple, but if you use this measurement, it is going to be almost perfect for you. Okay, so now I'm going to be using 3.7 because I am drafting this pattern based off of all the measurements that I am getting here. I am not alternating anything. So for 3.7 now, I'll just use somewhere around here. Okay, so normally, like I said, I would use 4, but now I'm making use of here, which is 3.7. You can see that it is on a close range. So sometimes you may even get here or anywhere close to it. So I'm going to be making use of 3.7 now. So I'm going to take 3.7 and I'm going to mark it out on my bust line here. I'll mark it out on my under bust line. I'll mark that on my waistline and then also on this full length line. And I'll just go ahead and connect this point like this. So guys, the next measurement I'm going to be working on is my bust cup size. So the formula for bust cup size is bust circumference, okay, bust circumference minus under bust circumference divided by 2. So now my round bust is 37 and my round under bust is 31. Okay, so now I'm going to divide this by 2. So 37 minus 31, that is 6, and 6 divided by 2, that gives me 3. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is that with this measurement, I will distribute it along my under bust line. Okay, so at this point here, I'm going to mark out 1 inch inward, and then the other 2 inches I'm going to mark it towards this other side. So if you get a measurement that will give you probably 2 inches here, you can share it as 1 inch here and 1 inch here. Okay, you usually get that kind of measurement when you are not that busty. Okay, so when I have this now, I will just go ahead and connect it to my bust like this. I'll be using the curved part of my ruler, and just like this, I will connect it to my bust. Okay, so this space that we have within here, we would always replace it. So next now, I'm just going to draw this line downward like this, because this now becomes a bust dart. All right, this now becomes a bust that's around this point. So next, now to get the rest of your body's piece, you should have already measured that on your client. So you're going to take your round bust measurements and you're going to divide it by 4, and then you're going to mark it out on your armhole line. So after marking this, now I'm going to come to this point, which is my armhole. To get my armhole curve, what I do is to take my tape, I measure what I have within the shoulder slope to this point, and then I divide it by 2 by folding my tape this way. I leave a mark at this point, and then from this point, what you're going to do is you're going to come in by half of an inch. Okay, I'm going to come in by half of an inch, and then I'm just going to connect these 3 points, which is 1, 2, 3, to form my armhole curve. So guys, next thing you're going to do is to come to your bust line, and you're also going to take your round bust measurement divided by 4, and you mark that out. Then you're going to come to your under bust line and take your round under bust measurements also divided by 4. So because of this large dart or cup size that we have taken here, you can't leave this way. So you have to measure everything that you have within this space. You can see that I have 3 inches here. I'll go ahead and replace 3 inches. So at this bust line now, I'll just add an extra allowance of about 1.5 inches, and I'll also mark that out on my armhole line. So I'll go ahead and connect these points just like this. Okay, and from this point now, I will just try and complete my armhole like this also. So you can see that this part now is done. So I'll come to my waistline and I'll take my round waist measurement again divided by 4. So for me, my waist and my under bust measurement is the same thing. It will differ based on your body type. If you have an apple body shape, a rectangle body shape, it will differ based on your body type. Okay, for some people, their waist may be even more smaller than their under bust. Okay, so after marking that out, I'll equally measure the darts that I took here, and then I will place it at this point just like this. Okay, and then I'm just going to connect upward like this. So the reason I did this now is just to make sure that my under bust and my bust is on the same line. I have not added any sewing allowance to this pattern. Okay, so on your full length now, you can just go ahead and connect it down. But if this was a top, it would have gone longer and I would have used my hip measurement at this point. So this is how you get your bust cup size. Okay, so now just in case you want to complete this to probably make it a shoulder dart, what you're going to do now is to come to your shoulder here, and you're going to take what you have within this point. So what I have within here is 5 inches, and I will divide it by 2. Okay, so 5 divided by 2, the midpoint is 2.5. I'll leave a mark at that point, and I'll just easily connect from my bust here to meet my shoulder like this. Okay, and this is how you get an easy shoulder dart. All right, and then if you also want to get a princess dart, what you can do now is to come to your armhole, that midpoint of your armhole. Now you are going to get it, and what you're going to do is to use your curved ruler, and then you just try to connect from this point to meet this one right here, just like this. Okay, can you see that? And then as it's a princess dart, you're going to come here, and then you're going to come down by 2 inches for your darts. And then what you're going to do is to connect this same point into these 2 inches just like this. All right, and then because I took 2 inches here, I'm going to replace 2 inches outward just like this, and then I'll extend this line just like I can see me doing, and I'll blend it into my armhole like this also. So this is just a princess dart. These 2 lines here you see is the cutting for the princess dart, and this one is the cutting for your straight shoulder dart. So now you can see how I've used these measurements here to get what I have here, but you should always remember to measure on your clients. Okay, especially your bust, your under bust, your waist, your hip, your shoulder. You shouldn't miss those because people have different sizes. Some people have an inverted triangle shape, so if you want to use your formula to get their shoulder measurements, you'll probably be having a smaller shoulder because people with an inverted triangle shape have wider shoulder. So I do hope you understand. So let's carry on. Next, I'm going to show you how you can get your crotch extension and how you can get your crotch depth. So guys, this measurement I'm about to show you is mainly pertinent to when you want to cut out your trouser, your jumpsuit, or even your shorts. Okay, so that's the crotch depth and the crotch extension or your thigh measurement. Now this is what you do. So here I'm going to draw a straight line. This straight line is going to be my starting line, and it's also going to be my waistline. So your waist to hip measurement is usually around 7, 8, 9, 9.5 inches. So this is also dependent on height. Okay, vertical measurements like this, such as shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, is mostly dependent on height sometimes. Okay, so waist to hip measurement is also dependent on height. So for this, I'm going to be making use of 8 inches. 8 inches is usually the standard for an average woman. Okay, so at this point now, I'm going to draw a straight line like this, and this becomes my hip line. So now to get your crotch depth, if you forgot to measure your crotch depth on your clients, what you have to do is take your round hip measurement and you're going to divide this by 4. So my round hip measurement is 43, and 43 divided by 4 gives me 10.75. So for a lower fitting trouser, you can make use of this measurement. But if you want a higher fitting trouser, the one we call high waist, you can now take this measurement and you can add as much as 1 to 2 inches to it. So I'm just going to add about 1.5 inches to it, and 10.75 plus 1.5 gives me about 12.25. And like I was saying on my tip, 12.25 is somewhere around here. Okay, so you can see it's very close to 12, which is my usual crotch measurement. Okay, so now I'm going to place my tape on my waistline here, and I'm going to mark out 12.25. So I'm going to extend this line just like this. So now I'm going to teach how to also cut out a short, and this is a bonus for this video. All right, so on my hip line now, I'll come to my hip line and I'll take my round hip measurement divided by 4, and I'll mark that out. I would also mark this out on this crotch line, and then I'll mark it out on my waistline. I'll just go ahead and extend these lines just like this. Okay, so now I'm going to come to my waistline here, and for my waistline I'm going to take my round waist measurements divided by 4. I'll go ahead and mark it out on this line right here, and I'll add an extra 1 inch allowance for that. Okay, so from this point I will connect to meet my hip line like this. This is a female trouser, so you can see that you already have a hip curve. All right, so because it is a short, at this point here I'm going to come down by about half of an inch, and I'll connect it upward to meet my waistline like this. Okay, so let's just take my short measurement, the length of my short now. Let's just take it as somewhere around 18 or 20 inches. Okay, and I'm going to also draw a straight line at 20 inches. So now next I'm going to take is our crotch extension or round thigh measurement. So let's say you forgot to take your round thigh measurement for your client. What you do is you're going to take your hip measurement that you have here. That is after you divided your hip measurement by 4. Okay, so hip measurement divided by 4. So whatever you get, let's say I got 10.75 for my hip. I'm going to take that again, that's 10.75, and I'll divide it again by 4. Okay, so 10.75 divided by 4 gives me about 2.6, which if I approximate this, okay, it will give me 3 inches. So now what I'm going to do is that I will take these 3 inches, and on my crotch line here I will come to this point and I will add 3 inches here. So this now automatically becomes my round thigh measurement. Okay, so I'm going to connect from this point now. I'll connect from this point and I'll connect upward like this, and this is how you get your crouch line. Okay, this is how you get your crouch line right here. And for a short, you can just go ahead and connect downward like this. So guys, this is basically all that I have for this tutorial. I do hope you found these measurements and these formulas that I shared with you very helpful. If you did, do not forget to leave a like, Subscribe to this channel, share to your friends and your family who you think would find this video very helpful, and I'll be seeing you in my next one. Please do not forget that these are approximations, so you can go ahead and check them out on yourself or in a few of your clients and see how it works for you. It may not always be the exact thing, but it's a head start when you have forgotten to take some basic body measurements. So I'll be seeing you in my next tutorial. Until then, bye guys.